Well, and it's a strange time as well because we also have Ignite running this month, the regional
Yeah,
Ignite program. So a couple of people have asked as they're torn between the two, right? They don't want to miss
yeah,
these sessions and they also want to attend Ignite. So that's
great.
perfect.
Okay, well then that's good. Then they can go back and take a look at it.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we can probably get started now. It looks like we have 29 people and
Wow,
climbing. So
that's
that's
awesome. Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Sue, for coming on and for, talking to us about working with buyers in a shifting market because that's what we're in, right? We're starting to see that shift and it's a challenging time.
Absolutely, great. Yeah. Okay. Do you want me just to start?
Yeah, and there may be some, let's see if we may have some guests on here. Let's see if you want to just perhaps tell everybody a bit about yourself for
Yeah,
anybody who is not familiar.
sure. Great. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for spending time with me this afternoon to talk about working with buyers in this market. My name is Sue. I have been with Keller Williams since the dawn of time with Keller Williams Advantage because I worked with Mike Clark on his team when he first joined. So I have started out working in the office in doing marketing for Mike, doing admin, and then I got licensed, and then I have been licensed and working as a solo agent for about 5 years now. And I work a lot with buyers and sellers, pardon me. And I have gone through a shift before, and so I am happy to share with you what I've learned, and I'm going to be relying very heavily on the shift book. So if you're new to Keller Williams, I haven't seen this, or just a guest joining, this is a really excellent resource that's written by top agents that have been through a couple of market shifts. And as you can see, I'm going to share a lot of information and insight in here. So one of the things I will say is nobody's ever done a shift in a pandemic market before. So I'm going to share with you some stuff and then give you my little spin on how we can tweak things in the market that we're working in now. And if anybody wants to ask a question, I think you can just unmute yourself and ask as we go along, because I don't really have a question and answer session, and I'll share with you what I can, and maybe we can brainstorm on some things too. Okay, so is that good?
Awesome. And
Great.
yes, they can also, if they're unable to speak for whatever reason, it's too noisy, you can also put your questions into the chat box and we'll make sure to get those answered for you.
Right, I'll try and pay attention to it too. Yeah, because
I can watch
some people
it.
I know don't have a mic on whatever device they're using. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, okay. And this is being recorded apparently, so we'll
It
get
is.
to that after. Okay, so working with buyers in a shifting market, what we're going to do is kind of focus on kind of 5 key things during the hour. So finding motivated buyers, converting leads, creating buyer urgency, and then those things are all covered in the shift book. I've also added a couple of sections that I think are important, and that is working with listing agents. If you've got buyers that are working with sellers experiencing a shift, and also setting some expectations with a buyer that may have bought at the top of the shift and then has to sell a property, and they're finding themselves caught as the market is shifting, and how to work through that. And I've been through that. What I haven't been through is in a pandemic, and I can tell you that nobody else has done that either. So I think what I've tried to do is go through all of the things that are recommended in the shift book, add some learning, and try and think of how we can adapt it to the way we're doing business now. And if you have any ideas that you can build on, please share those, because I think this is a great forum for not only me to be talking to you, but for me to be learning from you and everybody else to be learning from you as well. So change is coming June 1st. We're already starting to feel the market shift a bit. And you can see it on the calls. There's less offers on offers night. Prices are still up there, but some buyers are dropping out of the market. We've been talking about this for a while. But the government, if you haven't heard, is announcing some changes to the stress test for buyers. And that is going to be in effect June the 1st. They have just this past week sent letters out to some of the lenders saying that this is coming. So this is the most formal thing we've seen so far, even though we've heard about it a bit. And if you don't know what that is going to entail, it's going to entail a stress test with an extra 2 points of qualification on it for any buyer that is looking for an unsecured mortgage. So at 20% down. So that would be anybody that's looking to buy over $1 million, or anybody that is buying an income property, or anybody that is just trading up and has 20% down. They're going to be forced into a higher stress test, and it'll probably take 4 to 5% of their buying power out of the market, having to qualify at the higher rates. And the last time this happened, it caused a shift in the market, and we saw that at the peak prices of 2017. So this is something that you can watch for in the news, and they're going to announce it, I believe, formally to the public on the 24th of May. And then as far as we know, the changes that happen June 1st would be for anybody that they would qualify under the old rates if you've got an accepted offer and an approval by June the 1st. But if you have an accepted offer after June 1st, they may be subject to a higher stress test. So this last 2 weeks of May, I'm anticipating will be quite active in the market. So buyers' attitudes change, and your action needs to change in a shifting market. So it's very odd. So there's a couple of psychological things that happen in real estate market that I find with buyers. One right now you're seeing is that buyers get nervous with the scarcity of homes in the market and tend to gravitate towards homes that have an offers date and ignore properties that are sitting on the market. So there's this weird psychological thing that they all flock to the new listings. They all flock to things that they know are going to sell over the listing price. And it's a psychological effect. There's a psychological effect for buyers with a change in the market. And they shift from the fear of losing out. And it, ironically, once the opportunity is high and more homes come on the market, their urgency drops quite slowly, quite significantly. And it can be due to a few reasons. And you have to kind of understand that, because you kind of scratch your head and go, well, now that there's a bunch of homes on the market that are sitting there because the sellers have a lot of inventory, why aren't the buyers snapping these up? And their attitude shifts as well. So the market shift causes less people to be prepared to buy or sell, and it becomes very difficult to motivate them. Their motives are their own, and the media fuels these perceptions with negative news and uninformed advice that your buyers are exposed to every day in all sorts of ways, and it affects the way they make their decisions. And I'm going to read to you something from Shift here that talks about that. I'm going to flip back and forth here. Because you would think that the buyers would snap up the homes, but instead they just sit and wait. So buyers were afraid of losing out by not buying, even though the advantage is to the seller. Now a shift happens and it's a true buyer's market or a balanced market. Fear is in the driver's seat and the tables are turned. The fear of paying too much is out there with buyers, and it seems to stop most of them in their tracks and immobilizes them. When they should have been afraid of paying too much, and they weren't, now they shouldn't be afraid of paying too much, and they are. It's one of the great paradoxes of any market, and it shows the herd instinct. So it's a very unusual thing that happens, but we saw the market stall because of this in 2017. So it's really important you switch your focus to finding highly motivated buyers in this market. And then once you find them, you have to, John talked a lot about qualifying last week, so you have to qualify them very carefully and then go through and hone your skills so that you can work with them to actually come to action in this market and put offers in on properties, because they become very reluctant to do that in a shifting market. So the first thing we're going to talk about is finding motivated buyers. So to do that, I'm going to take you through a little exercise to identify the best leads, figure out what works, and to qualify where you can spend your time and spend less money so that you are getting more motivated buyers in your pipeline. So bear with me here. I'm going to go back to the Shift book. slide. There we go. So what you're going to try and do is to stop doing what doesn't work and shift your focus onto working very effectively with leads. And to do this, you're going to have to start by identifying your lead source. So with buyers, most people's lead source is sphere of influence, past client referrals. In the past, it's been open house and client events, and that's where lots of people have gotten buyer leads before. Now, of course, pandemic has stopped us from doing open houses and client events. So the arrow on the right side shows some ideas for doing the business now. So talking to your sphere of influence, calling past clients, those are all great things to do. And now we have to switch to virtual open houses, virtual client events, and virtual social media marketing. So one thing I want everybody to do is take a look at the business that they did over the last 2 years when the market's been going crazy. Write a list of where you have gotten your business from. I mean, you can do this with sellers too. The process is the same. Prioritize how you got them. I mean, you may have gotten buyers through door knocking too, and we can't do that either. And then focus on the most effective ways of doing it and look to see how you can do that virtually or by phone calls, because you can't do it in person right now. And take those 2 or 3 that are at the top, and you're going to put together a plan that's a disciplined and consistent effort to reach those people in a very high level way. Does that make sense to everybody? Hello?
Yes, we're all muted.
Okay.
It does make sense, Sue.
Okay, does that make sense? Okay, great.
It does. Thank you, Sue.
All right. Does anybody have any other ways that they have gotten buyers that they can add to this list? Because I've just kind of got my list, but let's throw out some other ideas there. If anybody's got anything, somebody's in the chat here. Oh, okay, just said yes. Okay. That you can add to this list of generating leads for buyers.
Past clients, referrals.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else that we can add to this list?
I'll pop in. We've been doing virtual open houses, or I've been doing them. We don't tend to get a huge turnout by any means, but we get a handful, and a handful is good enough for me because that's potential clients, obviously. I've never found that in one open house that every single one of them has an agent. So I always get at least 1 or 2 leads from that.
Great.
And Phil in the chat said cold calling, because some people are getting leads still through cold calling.
Oh, cold calling, that's good. Yes, I don't have that on there. That's a good one to add.
Or
I've been having really good luck with that, because if you approach a situation where you're asking them if they want to sell their home, a common objection is saying, well, we can't find anything to buy, but if we could, we would. And so they kind of lend each other.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
Great point.
So start out with putting this list together and based on what your business was in the past, because that's where you've been effective. And then you're going to build plans out for that.
Thanks, Pete.
Just one more point, Sue, about cold calling and like cold leads from open leads from open houses. I often find them easier because there's a lot less, there's a lot lower attachment for me than even with my sphere. If, you know, if they're not picking me, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I find like the potential rejection way easier from someone I don't know, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. One thing I would also add to this list, so this is basically looking for motivated buyers that are going to do something in a shorter period of time, because they're out looking at the houses right now, answering your ads. So they're actively looking, even if they're just doing research. But also I would add to this any sort of lead generation that is not immediately effective, but creates long-term lead generation opportunities. And that would be things like a newsletter that you have scheduled to go out once a month with market reports, things like that, where you've got an ongoing touch to these people that is not meant to create immediate opportunity. So you can add that in. It may be a physical newsletter, which costs money. It could be an electronic newsletter, which is of course free. And I've been having some success lately with newsletters, where and it takes a while to build the physical newsletter stuff, like 6 months or so. So what you have to do is look at what's worked and then build your plan around that. So let's see. Bear with me while so here we go. So what you're going to do is identify that lead source, list them out, prioritize them from most to least effective, and focus right now in a shifting market. What you're going to try and do is focus on being effective with low costs. So doing things, printing and doing marketing is a high cost effort, whereas calling and cold calling and doing the email touches are a low cost effort. So you're going to try and focus on the lowest cost way to get a hold of people and maintain those relationships, with adding in that long-term tactic that can build your leads over time. Make sense? Okay. Let me see if I have anything else to share from the Shift book, because I'm going back and forth for this one. I think I've done that. Okay. So the next point is, when you are working with these leads, you have to try and really qualify them so that you're turning these leads into appointments. So you're capturing, you're connecting, and you're closing on them. And I will say that probably my biggest weakness is closing. I am not what I call an aggressive closer to people. And quite often I get involved in a personal conversation with them, and then I walk away and I go, crap, I didn't ask for the business. So closing, to me, that's where I have to work. I'm pretty good at establishing trust and connecting with people. It's the closing I have to work on. And I think you should always be finding out where your skills are lacking and trying to build those up. So this is a pretty straightforward sales funnel. Once you've captured those leads that you've got before, you have to make sure when you're lead generating, you're capturing all their contact information, right? You are getting their email address, you're getting their phone number. If you're meeting them in person or having a conversation, you're getting that information so that you can do something with it. So you need to have the competition in this sector, especially on online leads, is going to start to get fierce as leads get scarce and people stop looking. So you need to really make sure that you're capturing that information. And then you need to have a system in place that is repeatable, dependable, and predictable for reaching out to these people. And that means you need to have a database set up to do that. And we have a database command, which is awesome. I'm going to read. So I'm going to share with you some stuff from Shift upon this. Capturing should always focus on getting enough information from someone so you can contact them. You connecting with them must feel natural and allow you to assess their needs and establish a relationship. That way your closing will seem effortless and likely lead to a decision to meet. You have a choice: repeatable and dependable, or unpredictable and reliable. You can come prepared or you can wing it. It's your call. Many agents assume a prospect will determine if they will meet you or not, but that's actually you determining whether or not you will meet them. Your ability will cause a meeting to take place, or your lack of ability will prevent it. This isn't a game of chance. This is scripts and systems that will allow you to do that. So scripts will ensure you say what needs to be said in a powerful way. And then you've practiced it, you've internalized it, so it becomes genuine and very natural when you say it, and you're not making things up as you go. Likewise, you have systems in place so that you're confident when you connect with somebody that you don't have to rethink the wheel every time. You've got a database with a systemized touch point in place, and you just have to follow the path that you have put in place. Okay. I like this quote from it. It says, painting by numbers doesn't require much thought or skill, but the outcome is predictable and can be surprisingly successful. Systems and checklists can channel your customer responses in the same way. That makes sense?
Yep.
Good. So I'm hoping that most of the people have a database that they're using that are on this call. Does anybody, and this is a safe place where we can share things. I use a couple of databases. I'll share what I do. I use a couple of databases. I have the command set up for all my past clients, and then I use command for talking to people that have come in through Facebook ads. And then I have a lead generating website that has a secondary lead generation tool with it, but it's got a back-end system too, similar to command. I've got campaigns set up in there. And then I also have the ability to send sold listings automatically to my past clients, which they like to be on. I call it nosy neighbor plan. And so they're in there too. So I have some predictable systematic things that are genuinely starting dialogues with my clients all the time. So they get those lists of solds and they reach out and talk to me, and it becomes kind of effortless. And I'm hoping that everybody else, if you don't have a database, you need to start putting these things into command and building those smart plans. And Carlos, are you on the call? Carlos?
He is on here. I'm not sure.
Oh, I
if
thought I
he-
saw him on here. Okay.
Yeah,
And if
he's
you don't
on.
have that set up, there's lots of tutorials, and Carlos can help you set up that back end so that you are doing this in a very systemized way. And I'm going to, does anybody have any questions about database? So I'm going to talk, this is not on a slide. I'm going to talk to you about some good questions when you're talking to people on the phone that allow you to connect. And I know that there's some scripting calls every week that you can take part in if you need to enhance your skills in this way. But I'm going to give you 6 connecting questions. And what I want you to do when you practice them is take a look, write them down. When you're asking the question, shut up and listen. And then, so you be an active listener. It'll lead to a next question. It's hard to do. It's hard to keep your mouth shut when you're a real estate agent. I get it. But ask the question, listen to the answer, ask why. So you get deeper into the connections, and then mirror. And that's another good technique for, so ask them a question, mirror their responses, and you'll be able to get into the connecting questions and the conversion process that way. So the first connecting question is, who are you? What do they want, or what do they need to do? Where do they want or need to do it? Why do they want or need to do it? And then you can ask what that means to them, because those are the questions. The why is the question that is going to identify their motivation. And when do they want or need to do it? And how do they plan to do it? I ask another question when I'm doing this. I ask what's important to them about this. And everybody's got a different answer. And that also helps identify their big why. What's important to you in the process? And then that really gets them to open up, and it starts to get them to trust you and to be able to get some good dialogues. And what you're trying to identify is if they have a clear motive and to do something, or they're just kind of looking around. So you are searching in this case for people that are motivated. That make sense?
Yep, that's great, Sue.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, so when you're talking to them, you can always say things like, thanks for sharing that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Those are all good questions to open people up and get a dialogue going, to get them to share with you what their plans are. And why is that important to you? All of those things allow you to do what they call going 3 deep, and asking the question 3 times in 3 different ways to be able to get you to connect to people. And for closing, I'm going to go to closing. So there's all sorts of closes. Now, I try and close a buyer that I haven't met before by getting them to meet me on Zoom. That's really what I'm doing now. And I find that that is quite effective. It's easy for me to do because it's easy for me to set up a Zoom call. People are so comfortable on Zoom now, or Google Meet, or whatever, however you're doing it, or FaceTime showing, all those things virtually. And they get a chance to meet you and see you and ask you questions. And you're able to go through a little presentation like this with them. They're able to do it from the comfort of their own home if they don't want to meet you. And it makes, to me, it makes a lot of sense. And I have a feeling that going forward in life, we're going to be doing a blend of meeting people and doing presentations like I'm doing with you, where you can see me and hear me and ask questions. And I'm very comfortable asking for a close with that. It's funny, I'm more comfortable asking for a close on a Zoom meeting than I am meeting me in person and going to the office. It's just my comfort level. But you want to get them to do something at the end. Okay, so I'm going to share with you some closing scripts once you've had a chance with them. So let's meet. Would you like to set up a Zoom meeting? When would you like to meet with me on Zoom? How about we do a Zoom call this Saturday? Are you around at 2 o'clock? It'll only take about a half an hour. Soft close. Hey, I'd really like talking with you on the phone. How about we set up a Zoom meeting in a week and we can go through your list of questions? Can we meet on Zoom today? Hey, before we go out and shop in the market, how about I bring up some listings online and we talk about them with each other? Would you like to do that? We can do some virtual showings. Indirect closing. How about I get the answers to your questions, take a look at it, and then I will get back to you in 3 days and I'll set up a Zoom meeting and we can go through the answers. The trial close. So based on our phone conversation today, have I answered enough questions for you that I can start to book some showings and we can go out and see some properties? The assumptive close. Hey, that's great. It sounds like you'd really benefit from going to see some properties where we can talk about this more in depth. How about Saturday? Are you available to go out and look at some things? Negative positive close. Oh, I like this. I use this a lot. Would you be offended if we could go and meet this over this or set up a Zoom meeting? I use the offended part if I am at, quite often, say if I'm at one of my listings and I'm fussing around with the sign and the people next door come over and they say, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And I say, would you be very offended if I gave you my business card and followed up with you in a week? I've never had anybody say, oh yes, I'd be very offended. Please don't call me. So I personally like that one. That's in my comfort zone. Then you have the alternative choice close. That's very popular too. Okay, let me set up a Zoom call. When's the best time for you to do it? Saturday morning at 10 or Saturday afternoon at 2, and just be assumptive about it. Okay. Any questions on closing? Capturing connection?
No, I don't see any in the chat yet.
Okay. It's very quiet. You're either asleep or you're just very quiet.
Sue, are we going to be able to get those questions that you written out that you just spoke about? Because I was trying to write it down, but
That I was
I'm a
too
slow
fast?
writer.
Okay.
I'm a slow writer.
Okay. Yep, I can put that. I earmarked the place. So I have written the closing questions. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I can put those up on the Facebook group. If you have the shift book, do you have the shift book?
I actually do. Do you know the pages?
It's on page 101.
Perfect. Thank you.
And if somebody does not have shift, make sure that you reach out to a member of the leadership team at either office, and we'd be glad to see what we can do to get you a copy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Okay, creating buyer urgency. So here's what I find is the most unusual thing that happens in the shifting market is that buyers all of a sudden they put up their hands and go, prices are going down. I'm just going to wait to see how far they drop. And they get very, very reluctant in terms of pulling the plug and making a commitment, even though all of a sudden you as an agent see an incredible myriad of opportunities for them. All of a sudden they put the brakes on, and it's a very strange phenomenon, but that's what happens. So be prepared for it. I am going to, and part of it, and so what you want to do is you have to energize buyer urgency. You have to understand where it's coming from, become their trusted source, find out what's holding them back, and address their reluctance to try and get them to move forward. And sometimes it's just looking for more people that have more motivation in place and not spinning your wheels, but you can help them through this because all of a sudden they're paralyzed. So I'm going to read you a little bit of insight into why this happens. Understanding buyer urgency and its root cause and how to respond is imperative in a shift. When buyers are more reluctant than ever to make offers and more willing to walk away from signed contracts, you have to be prepared. You have to help buyers discover a sense of urgency. Only buyers who are able, ready, and willing to buy a home buy one. Able, ready, and waiting may or may not buy one. As a result, when you first meet a potential buyer, the three fundamental things you have to understand, and this goes back to your scripts, are their ability, their readiness, and willingness to buy now. And these answers determine if they really qualify as a buyer in a shift. And this goes back to John's comments of finding very highly motivated sellers in a shift. You have to qualify the buyers in a shift too, to make sure you're not just, being a hobby showist on the weekend. So of course, the first thing you have to know is their ability to buy, their financial capacity in a certain price range. You have to understand their readiness to buy, the personal reasons that are motivating them to purchase, and their willingness to buy, their sense of urgency when they want or need to buy a home. Three of these must exist together for them to be able to go to action and buy something. You can only afford to work with buyers whose time frame is now in a shift, and that's what you're looking for. So you are highly qualifying these people that you're speaking with. So one of the things to do is to be the local economist. Every market has a cycle. Now, in the pandemic, we know that the cycles have been disruptive. So that seasonality of the ups and downs of the spring and the fall market has been disruptive. And we've just been seeing things go up, but it can't go up forever. And we know there's going to be some disruption from the government in there. So you have to understand from the past how this is going to affect the future and be able to communicate that with your clients. So one thing that I did that I'm working with my sellers now, you can do this with the buyers, is take a look in your market and see what happened in the last shift and see where the opportunity is, because this will give you the excitement that you can deliver to your buyers and create that urgency. So this is one thing that I did recently. I took a look at what happened in 2017. This is just the Toronto detached housing prices. And I created a little chart, and you can go into Treb and pull the data charts and create your own little chart. And if you want to know how to do that, you can always, reach out and I will walk you through it. So you create this little chart, and it showed where the peak was in the market in 2017, where everything was going up, up, up. And then when the stress test got announced, it dropped down. As you can see, there was about a 5-month recovery period when things started to go up again. So that 5 months represented an opportunity for any buyer that wanted to get in the market. And then it took a while for the prices to recover back to the 2017 highs. So you can pull this for any area and any segment that you're talking with a buyer to become the expert at timing the market, because these buyers all think that it's going to drop and drop and drop. So you have to be able to show them what their opportunity time frame is to create that urgency. Does that make sense? So I did this for condos too, just to like take a look at condos. I don't have the chart here, and condo recovery was faster. If you're dealing in a lower price point, you may not see so much of a drop. So you can take a look at this so you can level set the expectations of your buyers.
So
And-
Sue, if I can ask a quick question. So
Yeah.
this chart here, you basically, was this created on the stats on Treb or?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I went into Treb and I went into their, oh, I forget what it's called, where you can pull the data charts and you can download an Excel sheet, and then it gives you columns of sales by month, and you can segment it. So you could look at EO1 if you wanted to, you could look at EO1 detached. You could look at townhouses, you could look at condos, and I just pulled the charts from January 9th in 2017, where I knew prices were going up till now.
That's
I
awesome.
charted it out and I took a look at the prices and what happened.
Great, thanks.
So for instance, I know working with buyers in a first-time buyer's market in the say $600,000 to $700,000 range, if I pulled this chart for a first-time home buyer's price range, the chart's going to look different. Like the prices are not probably going to drop in that lowest market segment. So to have the buyers wait for that is probably not something that's going to happen. And you have to be able to walk them through that by using this kind of market data to become the expert. Does that make sense? This works especially well if you have some clients that are analytical.
Hi, Sue. Sorry, I just have a question. At what point should you share this chart with your client? Like while you're doing the buyer consultation, or okay, buyer.
Yeah, that's what I do. In the buyer consult now, what I do is I kind of start out with why home ownership is important to Canadians and show just a basic chart of prices, you know, since the 70s and how it's gone up. And then I take a look at, then I kind of gauge what their, how much they've been paying attention to the market, because some people, everybody has a very different perception of what's happening in the market based on the news that they've seen, right? So this helps me set their expectations. So I put this in at the front. Let's take a look at what house prices are doing.
Oh, I think Sue's frozen for the moment. We'll just wait for her to get
Okay.
reanimated. There you are, Sue. You were frozen for a moment.
Was I frozen? Okay.
That's all
right.
good.
So the first one is, okay, so we talked about being the local economist, and you can get a drill down as fine as you can into it, and it will really help them understand you're an expert. Then you need to get into their personal motivation to create the urgency. Find their personal motivation, ask great questions, go 3 deep, be that active listener. So when they answer, pay attention, try not to talk, and switch out of a presenting mode to a listening mode. And then mirror their responses so you truly show that you're understanding them. So that those 2 last points are really good at being an effective communicator. And hang on a second, I'm going to look in the shift book again to see if we have any more details on this. 95, 96, as I flip back and forth. Oh, we talked about the connection questions. All right, understand urgency and why. Okay. So tapping into their why, here are some questions. So what you're trying to do is find out what's motivating them. Is it a new job, a new baby, a new marriage, something in their life that is going to happen to them that is going to create some action in their life? Or are these people that are just looking for deals in the market and waiting for the prices to drop? Because there are those people out there too. And it is much easier to work with people that are having a personal event in their lives motivating them to action. So why are you thinking about buying? What will that do for you? What will that mean to your family? So those are the kind of 3 deep questions. Listen to those very carefully to be able to hone in on what they're looking for. Ask questions about the market. No one can predict the market. Prices have already dropped considerably in some cases. And sometimes waiting longer doesn't make sense to a buyer, and you know that before they do. But you can ask them their perceptions on the market. Do you think prices have dropped? They'll answer yes. Do you think they'll even go up again? And they'll say yes, eventually. So aren't you saying it's okay to go out buying again? Given how you feel, if we found a home today that met all your needs and your most important wants, knowing that prices may eventually go up, is there any reason you would not put an offer to purchase on that home today? Sellers are in the same situation you're in. They know that prices will come back one day. Genuine sellers want to or need to sell now. They don't know if prices will go any lower. So if they can sell today, they will. So this is getting to the heart of their reluctance and their motivation. That is all on page 187 of the Shift book. Those are some great scripts to have that tap into their why and their motivation. And then there may be the people that are still reluctant, because there's a lot of people out there that are not risk takers and they will truly believe that the market will go down. So there are 4 different techniques that you can use to work with these people that may get them to act when you feel that the market, when there's some good opportunities in the market. And the first is why wait? The hazards of timing the market. So taking them through how the market is now, what their prices are now, and if any interest rates go up, how that's going to affect their affordability. Trading up buyers, because a lot of buyers that trade up will, wanting to trade up will understand they'll get less for their house in this market, but the opportunity is greater on the trade up, where they are going to be spending less money trading up to a new house than they will lose with the purchase, with the sale of their small house. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. Did everybody get that? Does that make sense? Okay, I'm assuming you know. It's explained on page 190 if you need to have somebody more eloquent speak to that. Less is more. So a lot of times in these type of situations, when there's a lot of inventory that comes on the market, the choice is paralyzing to the buyers, and they want to wait to see if something better, cheaper comes up. So you have to work with them. They might show some superficial interest, but they are looking for a needle in a haystack. My internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me? Okay. There's too much of a good thing. It becomes difficult for them to make a decision because there's too much choice there. This is where you come in and become the curator of the listings that you send to them and the properties that you show them, by having that great dialogue with them so that they can start to make a choice. And buyers are 10 times more likely to buy if they choose among 6 things than among 24 things, because that choice is paralyzing. I don't know if you've ever stood in front of the cereal aisle when you're hungry and not been able to make a decision because there's too much choice, but I've been there, and this is what buyers will be like. So you have to just show them a limited selection and get them to choose from that. And then one last great way to do this is to find a best buy and create a best buy list. So if you're working with your buyers, if you take that selection of what they're looking for and create a best buy list each week in the market, and show that to them and position that as something that is an irresistible, limited time offer, best buy, curated for them, and send it to them, this is a great way to get them motivated to look through that, because you've done the work for them. So they become less paralyzed. And you can use that best buy list as a registration tool. And I've seen Dan Plowman using that in his Facebook ads, a best buy list in properties in Oshawa under $600,000. So it's a really good way, I think, to initiate some new buyers in the market too. You can use this as a marketing tool. Okay, creates that urgency.
Sue, I have a question for you
Yep.
regarding that. So what are your thoughts on, like, you set up a client on a search, right? And so
Yep.
they're bombarded with these constant listings that come out.
Mhm.
Would it be better if you know somebody is not really seriously looking than to set yourself up on that search? And when you see something that you consider a best buy, then you send it to them, like something that
Yeah.
meets all their criteria, that's a wow factor.
Yeah, I think you can do that a few ways. So I think you can, if you're in Matrix, you can put your clients on a property match that's called a concierge service. And that means that the match comes to you first, and then you pick and choose what you send to them. So that's one way to do it. The second way to do it is to take a look at what they've been sent every week on a Friday and schedule some time to go through that. And then go back to them and say, hey, did you see, out of the ones that you sent, here's my top 5. And
Got
then
it.
go back and curate that list for them. You can also put if you put yourself on the lists so that you're getting them at the same time, then you can also reach out to them as soon as you see that hit to make sure that they've seen that one if that hits their criteria. So whether you call it a best buy list or not, curating the homes that they see and they know you're watching out for them helps them see the urgency in it.
That's great. Thanks.
I really like that idea of doing a best buy list. I'd like to experiment with some Facebook ads that are, you know, list building and getting people that are looking in the market as with a best buy or a list of homes under a certain price point or whatever. I think it's real. I think that's a great idea. And I didn't make it up. I stole it, which is always means it's good when you steal it from somebody else. Okay. Anybody have any questions about urgency? Has anybody experienced this yet? Finding that the buyers are kind of stepping back and you're not sure why, and does this help understand what they're going through?
Feel free to unmute and share. Or you can also pop some information in the chat too.
Okay. Oh, there's some stuff in here. Chat for. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody
I
made a good point.
yeah.
This will win out some agents. Yeah.
Oh no, I would just bring up one. I do believe some of the buyers, like I just had a listing in Ajax, and I actually had, when I reach out to the agents asking for feedback on it, so a lot of them actually said, oh, you have an offer night? Oh yeah, my buyers are trying to avoid offer nights. They don't want to be in a bidding war. So a lot of that has been happening that I've noticed in terms of buyers, but I think it's just us as agents have to really set the bar for them and just like coach them and explain to them reasons why, if it's an offer night, we should go if we think it's the right value for them, and try to put the fear away, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because I know with I've had a buyer in the past where they didn't want nothing to do with offer nights, and I just said, look, you go in at your best price point. You don't have to go higher if you don't feel comfortable. At the end of the day, it's the choice for you. I think it might sell around this price point. However, if you go in and they ask us to improve, and if you don't feel comfortable, then that's okay. You could walk away. Because sometimes they think they have to go higher and higher and higher, and then they get scared thinking that they paid too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And the irony is, so many buyers don't want multiple offers, yet if you put a listing out there with a buy it now price, they will go to the ones that have an offers date. They're
Very true.
psychologically predetermined to do that right now, and that's because of the way the market's been handling. So it's an odd situation. Does anybody else have any buyers that are particularly challenging right now that might be good to ask some questions and get some hive mind feedback? Because otherwise I'm going to end with once the market has shifted, how you work with listing agents and how you deal with your own clients that may have bought high and need to sell after it's shifted. But does anybody else have any questions in the next couple of minutes with their own buyers?
Hi, Sue. It's Samita here. So I had a buyer who was once very motivated, and we went and showed, like, I went and showed a bunch of properties to them, and then the whole bidding war just kind of put a bad taste in their mouth. And they were going to sell their place and then potentially move, and now they're just so fed up. They're like, no, I just want to step away from all this and just move. And I didn't really know what to say. I was like, okay, sounds good. Yeah, like I understand where you're coming from. It is challenging. And now they just started doing some renos at their own place, and they said that we're just going to live here for now. So I don't know, but yeah. So I did have that very strong, motivated, and then all of a sudden it was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing this.
Frustrated and step back. Yeah. And I find it goes either way. They can do that, or once they start looking and they tell you, oh, well, I'm just looking. And sometimes once they start to see a couple of properties, they get the bug and they get more motivated. So I think if you are the consultant and kind of share some of this market data with them, that will help when they're ready to go to nurture that relationship and trust you as the expert.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing that I found, once it's a shift is happening, that sellers have very high expectations of price. So we're seeing this now where there's a lot of listings where people are only trying to test the market, and the prices out there are kind of outrageous. And working with a listing agent to try and find a win-win for clients when you know that there's an opportunity and you have a motivated buyer can be a challenge, because the seller's expectations haven't caught up with where the market is. So one thing that I recommend really strongly is establishing a really good relationship with the listing agent and just calling them and finding the sellers that are motivated to work with you. So you have to do the legwork. You may have to chase down these houses before you show them, so that you understand that the sellers are willing to sell and willing to be flexible and willing to entertain offers. And you need to find an agent that understands what's happening in the market and works collaboratively with you. So that's a very important skill to have, I think, as you go forward, where those unrealistic sellers are going to be stuck with their houses and be relisting and relisting and relisting, and probably take 6 or 7 months to catch up with where buyers immediately sense the shift and change the way they approach looking at listings. And you really need to be able to have a list of questions you can ask the listing agent to try and get to the heart of a motivated seller. Does that make sense? So collaborate, understand the seller's motivation, be able to hone your negotiation skills. Don't try and convince them that you're right, they're wrong. What you're trying to do is find people that will work with you to find a solution that works for everybody. And set your clients' expectations that this is not going to happen on every listing, that there will be people out there that expect, prices from 2 months ago or whatever time frame you're working in. And what you're doing is you're going to work really hard to find the people that are going to create a good opportunity for your buyer and have the seller sell, so that you need them to be motivated. Same thing working with buyers who have bought high and waited because they thought they were going to get a super high sale price. In a shift, all of a sudden, they bought high and now they need to sell. You need to set their expectations and really educate them on the market and what's happening. I think you really have to believe in the price that you are going to sell their house with, and you are going to have to work with them to improve that house as much as possible so you can get them the top price. But as an agent, you have to manage your expenses on this, because you don't want to be stuck with a property you've put a bunch of money in and it'll sit there on the market and not sell. I've been through that part. This is a tough conversations to have with people. So you really have to manage their expectations and be in touch with them every day about what's happening in the market. You have to work really hard to make connections with the buyer's agents that are coming through, to find somebody who's going to, really like the house and work with them to do a win-win. Encourage them to make fact-based decisions so that the emotion's taken out of it, because it stings when they've bought high and then they go to sell and the sale prices have dropped a bit and they're not going to get the price they hoped. And be creative with your marketing and manage your expenses. So if you're going into a situation like this and you're offering to pay for staging, make sure that you say, I'm paying for staging for X amount of time. if you want to keep it longer, then, you know, we'll talk about that, and maybe you pick up some of the costs, because you don't want to be sitting there with a house full of staging and have it be on the market for 60 days, because it'll be very stressful for you, and it'll be very expensive financially. So these are the things you have to do, but really working with your sellers and talking to them every day is key. The communication is key to this, to keep them calm, manage their expectations, and you know, show them that you're working super hard to get their house sold, even if all of a sudden showings slow down, because it happens. Okay. So to close, I'm going to say that working with buyers, if you do these 5 things, you will set yourself up for success in a shifting market. First of all, you should go out and get Shift and read that Shift book. Discipline your schedule. So go through and set up your plan and be disciplined about your schedule and do it every day, because it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be hit or miss. It's going to be discipline that will set you apart and keep you through this time. Hone your skills so that you know your scripts. When you connect with people, you're able to do that conversion. Be consistent with your efforts. And I added this in because I think you should create rewards for your success. I mean, if you do the actions every week and you've got a consistent schedule, treat yourself to something. Create a reward system so that you pat yourself on your back, because this is a long-term plan that will set you up for success, whether the times are good or the times are bad. All right, I've got a couple of people in the chat. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, 1:59 p.m., even on time.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, Sue. Look at that.
Look at that. Wow. You guys are very quiet, very quiet.
Thanks,
It's
Sue. It's really helpful.
Yeah, there was a lot of information there, which is
Yeah.
just amazing information. So really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's great. You know what? I can't take
Appreciate
credit for it, really. It's come from Shift. There's so much stuff in here. I mean, I've just highlighted the book. It's crazy.
And that's why, you know, if you don't have a copy, make sure that you reach out, and we'll see what we can do to get you a copy so that you're able to get, you know, those nuggets of information to help make
Really
you
great
successful.
information, a lot of great scripting in here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we'll then right at 2 o'clock on the nose. Look at that. That's amazing.
Great.
And what a great session. Thank you again so much, Sue. Really,
All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time. I really appreciate you hanging in here. Thanks.
yes, thanks to all our attendees. And don't forget to sign up for Red Day. Red Day. Awesome.